Good day. Welcome to Brothers Crossing. For all my brothers in Ukraine, Hiroshi Den. We're here, we're Brothers Crossing, trying to make your day from a good day to a great day. I'm here with my brothers. I'm Roro, here with my brothers, Nando and Cub. What's happening, bro?
What's up, fellas?
What's going on?
How are you?
We're here on our ninth episode. Hope everyone's enjoying it. But today we're going to switch up things a little bit. We've got a meaty topic, and I think we typically talk about today's tidings, but today's tidings is something that we want to dig a little heavier into, and that is guns and gun control. There's about 393 million guns in the US, so that's 120 guns per 100 capita. And in 2025, there has been over 300 mass shootings. So it seems like a relevant topic, given all the things that are going on, including the political environment. So I'm bringing it to you, brothers, to give us some old school wisdom and some new school wisdom about guns and what should be done, if anything, about guns. Nando, you got something for me?
I got a lot for you, and it may not be helpful. It may not win me president of the year, but I have issues. The issues that I have is we have a lot of bureaucracy right now piled up in the system, and nothing is working in reference to gun control. Now, for the record, I don't own a gun. But my thing is I don't have a problem with somebody owning a gun to protect their family. That's not what our discussion is about. Our discussion is about the bad apples that are getting it, that are knocking it off in school, where right now they're thinking this is normal, where the bad guys are getting it. Look at DC, look at Chicago, if everybody's having a gun and thinking it's a wild, wild west. My thing is, I would like to hear from a gun owner, not in a way that says, this is why I need to have a gun, but I need you to meet me halfway, of a person who doesn't own a gun, and explain to me how we can come together and meet halfway to start to narrow down the bureaucracy that is in there and to limit the number of guns that are getting in the bad habits' hands. Because think about it. Home invasions don't take a break. They don't call you at 3 a.m. Guess what? We're breaking in your house. No, they don't take a break. What we have to figure out together is, how do we help to get it out of these kids' hands with these mass shootings? That's what I need to hear from a gun owner. Don't tell me why you need to have 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 of them. I don't want to hear that. Just like you don't want to hear why you shouldn't have a gun. Help me halfway. So maybe one of you two can guide me, just like some of our listeners who don't own a gun. Help me. Just guide me. I just don't know.
And I let me jump in, Cuff, because I think one of the things I've done for majority of my life, I was like you, Nando. I wasn't about holding a gun. I wasn't. Things started changing. I saw the society changing, the need to protect yourself, in particular, getting old. I mean, I might not be able to whip a lot of people face to face. So it was more about protection, right, for me. And so I ended up getting one. I don't say I'm, a big gun advocate, but I respect the fact that people get to protect themselves. If you look statistically, there's about 76% of gun owners own their guns, particularly for protection. Why people have excessive amount of guns, I don't know. But that's the reason I do. And I'm not advocating that people shouldn't have guns. I just protection, and then let's not get carried away.
Well, I mean, but I was not a gun owner for the majority of my adult life. Only in the last 20, maybe just over 20 years, I bought my first gun, but that was because we had an incident in front of our house where, a couple guys breaking into a neighbor's car, stealing some stuff, and he came out and shot one of the guys, and right in front of our house, all this is going on at like 5:30 in the morning. And I felt that that was a little too close for comfort. So I worked with people at that time that were big time gun advocates and I would say they had plenty of guns, more than I would ever own myself. But for me, it was primarily family protection. You don't want to, if some trouble comes to you, you don't want to be, empty handed, so to speak. You want to at least be equal, because you have to assume that if trouble's coming to your front door, more than likely they have a gun. So at least, fight fire with fire. I'm not own multiple guns. I think Ro and I are similar. I have one. It's all I need. I'm not a hunter, so I don't need a rifle, but I don't have a problem with people that do hunt and own rifles and shotguns and things of that nature. I think more than anything, it's the assault style that they have the look of a military weapon, and those seems to be the weapons of choice in mass shootings and killing kids in schools that I think we talked about it before. I'm just over it, as most people should. And I think, the only way that we're going to affect change is going to be some slight modifications to the U.S. Constitution. The only way it's going to make some change, in my opinion.
So when you're sitting here saying that we already have enough bureaucracy, and as a country, I don't know when the first effort was at Columbine. What was the first high school? What was the first school shooting on the books?
I think the big one that really kind of started this off was Columbine.
So when we look at it that way, we first got hit with that, and people were just like, oh my God, this can never happen here in the United States. It can happen somewhere else, but not here in the United States. And now it's normal that we are seeing school shootings all the time. So my question to the school shootings, or is it us not investing in our kids anymore? Because for somebody to have the thought process for a year or 2 years of drawing diagrams up on a notebook, telling one or two friends, I hate this life, I hate you, motherfucker, I'm going to shoot you, and for it to come and happen. I know we're supposed to talk about gun laws, but now with what you brought up, it made me think, should we be talking about bureaucracy with the gun laws, or should we talk about bureaucracy with having more individuals in schools, of having an open forum so that kids can snitch on other kids without us getting to this level? So that would be my question.
Well, I mean, it's, I think, the first part, what you mentioned, it's not a black and white issue. And what I mean by that is family, certainly parents' involvement, how they bring it up in the family, how they deal with it. There's a lot of very responsible gun owners. They teach their children, they're dangerous. This is how you handle it. They're only used for these types of purposes. And you don't really have issues in those types of family environments. It's let's just call them the irresponsible ones. When you talk about the school shootings, Columbine kind of kicked it off. And I think young folks thought, hey, what an easy way to solve a problem of a bully or what have you. And it's kind of just blown up from there amongst all the other types of shootings. But the school shootings is, that's a sensitive subject for me. All of it, anyone killed senselessly with a gun is unacceptable in our society. But I think ultimately it does go to the legislative side. It's all about dollars. If they can keep everyone suppressed with the least amount of restrictions on gun ownership and the types of guns and how many you can have, it's dollars and cents for the gun manufacturers. Whenever on the political side, if there's a Democrat coming into office, they're taking your guns, gun sales go through the roof. Well, no one's taking your guns yet, right?
Yeah. I think for me, you raised a good point, Nando, are we looking at the mental aspect of it? And I think that's something we do have to look at, because what I heard you say, Cub, everything's like, well, we got the crazies or the one-offs. When you put people in certain situations, they react different. Everybody, from a psychological standpoint, everyone wants to be happy. But that is such a temporary thing. Happiness is a temporary thing. But when you stop having happiness, then things start happening to you that are not, happy feelings. And we're all one or two bad events away. We're all one or two bad events away from having some mental things that we have to deal with. Now, you put guns in people's hands, you make that temporary mental thing permanent, because you got a way to now I'm gonna prove my point now, because guns only really there to destroy, kill, whatever. And so I think that's a part that we need to look at. And the other part and we can talk about it too, is, and you have raised a point like, things aren't going to always happen. You could have 3 or 4 people with guns sitting in a store, but then things don't happen perfectly. Like, oh, here comes the bad guy with the gun. No, the bad guy's behind you, and you didn't know it, even though you're strapped. Had a story about a good friend of ours, and by 2000, his name was Frank Moore, and he just went over to check his neighbor's house. I'm sure he's carrying a gun, but he walked through the house through the back door. He thought he had cleared the house, shot him in the back of the head. So things don't happen sequentially, no matter how many guns you have. So that's the part to me where I'm like, let's look at one, how many guns we have, because we got to protect ourselves from each other, ourselves and each other, because of the mental thing. And look, the mental approach is, it's always not the people that are typically, he's the crazy guy. He's the one with the helmet walking down the street. It's all of us have daily things that happen to us, and we got to address those things as well, because we're all 1 or 2 events away.
Yeah, I mean the mental part of it, I think you hit the nail on the head. That's why some states have red flag laws. As a family member, you've got a family member that's going through some issues, and they may own a gun. That's where they need to take the guns out of that environment, because usually more times than not, something bad's going to happen, either to the individual or individual and people around them. But the flip side of that are the strong good advocates of there should be no restrictions. And I think that's the battle line of zero restrictions, some restrictions, where do we meet in the middle, right? The other point you make about, you could be sitting in a diner and everyone's strapped, and then the person behind you, the one side solution is, we need more good guys with guns. There's plenty of them out there, but to your point, it's never drawn up to where the good guys are sitting there and they see the bad guy come in and, oh, we're ready for him. And as soon as he went to his gun, we all took him out and see it worked. The system worked. Rarely does. There's probably more cases of where it's never worked that way than it's worked that way.
No, I agree 100%. I agree 100%. I think with this episode, we should find or know somebody who has multiple guns, a multiple gun owner, for them to come on and have this discussion with us, because we figured out 2 things. One, we figured out we got too much bureaucracy right now, and it's still not helping us. And 2, we've never talked about the mental aspect of it, of these individuals who has it, that people are afraid that if they turn somebody in and all of a sudden there's not enough laws to protect them, that person's going to come back and get them. So a lot more people are just sitting back, and especially kids. If you're in high school, think about your high school. You're in high school and you're hanging out with somebody who's a little teeter. You're not going to run and tell the teacher, because you're afraid. He knows where I live. He knows where I get off the bus. He knows where I walk. He knows where my friend. You're not going to squeal on him. But that's where, if we had the mental aspect, I won't go into it because I think you guys understand where I'm going with it. But I think those 2 things would be interesting to bring up to a gun owner who has more than 5 guns, 5 to 10. I'm not worried about why you have them. Just explain to me about the 2 topics we just brought up. That's what I would say.
But for me, I think there's a trend that I feel like that's happening in our modern society. And so when we bring up a topic such as gun control, there's like, they're going to take my guns. You had brought that up, Cub. They're going to take my guns. So it's that fear. And you know what fear gets into? Once you have fear, it gets into anger. And then anger is going to be, I'm mad at you because you think they should take my guns. And you know what? Fear becomes anger. Anger becomes hate. And we're never, ever going to actually have a conversation because you're fearful that someone's going to take your guns. I should be able to protect myself. And that's not what we're talking about. So we've got to how do we lower the temperature on the fear part? And that's to me.
I don't know that you will. I mean, when he started, you talked about how many guns was it 393 million?
3 million, yeah.
That's probably registered guns.
Yes, that's registered guns. That's a good point.
I bet you that number, you probably add another 100 million to that number easily, if I had to guess. But I'm going to go back to the legislative side. The Constitution has not been updated in decades and decades and decades. And whenever there was a need to make changes, permanent changes to law, there's an amendment to the Constitution. The Second Amendment, the way it's written, it shall not be infringed. You're talking about something that was written 250 years ago. I don't think the founding fathers could even have imagined what today would be like. So I think I'm not for taking everyone's guns, banning guns, but I think, the red flag laws need to be made law across the land for people that have documented mental issues. Um, that that needs to be resolved before they can legally purchase a gun or have a gun in any way. That's the most difficult part of what I think needs to happen is just making some tweaks to the Constitution to have some restrictions, but negotiating that is the long haul.
Well, I think the analogies that I always have, and I mean, I'm a big boxing fan, and so there's always that manager who has to throw in the towel, and the fighter's like, "I'm gonna keep fighting." They's like, "I throw it in to protect you from you. That's who you are." And so I'm saying, in the same way that we have drunk driving laws. Okay, you shouldn't drink this much. We want to protect you for you and you against the society. Why aren't we able to do that with the guns?
Yeah.
Protect from yourself when you have a
Seatbelt
mental
laws.
problem or protect for others. So I think that's my bottom line. We
Yeah,
need
your bottom line makes point, but you're bringing up with like here in California, there was somebody who, yes, as I have a cocktail at my house that had their 10th DUI. The laws that we have too many laws. They're providing so many laws for TV, not for the reality of what it is. Nobody should be operating a car that already has maybe they didn't have their license and they were drinking and driving. They shouldn't have get behind the wheel. That's number one. And right now with the guns, I bet you if we all looked at all of the laws that we have on gun control, some of them don't even make any sense that helps protect us. Sometimes I think we just need to, if we have 20 laws, maybe 10 of them actually work. We should get rid of the other 10. We need to find a way that we have concrete things for today, not 200 years ago, not 100 years ago, but it's affecting us from today for the next 100 years. Because right now things are changing. And I don't think we're.
I'll challenge our listeners and viewers, including yourself. Look at all the states that have gun control law, and you look at their death per capita. You'll find it very interesting that the states that have more gun control laws actually have lower rates. Now they'll focus in on perhaps bigger crime cities. They'll get you to focus on that. Overall, as states, Mississippi's and some of the southern states, and I'm giving love to all the southern states, but the ones that have less gun laws have higher death rates, but they don't tell you because you can only once you start pointing to the city. Look at that city. That's 30 city. They have a bunch of crime. Look at it. And I challenge the listeners, and you can challenge me in the comments. What'd you think? But that's to me, I think gun laws actually work. I'm not going to solve everything, but they, to me, help protect us from you, and you from killing others.
I mean, you'll never legislate morality. Either you're responsible or you're not. And I think there's too many that are not.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you had to wrap it up and say, what would be your hope for gun laws, let's say in the next 5 years, what would you like to see happen? And we can wrap it up that way.
I would like to see red flag laws standard in every state across the country. Everyone talks about, the mental illness. We got people that, we need to help these people with mental issues, and yet we don't fund it or decrease funding. But I think red flag laws would go a long way for family members, for their immediate family member that's having an issue and has guns, to get them out of that environment. And I think nationwide, I think that would have the quickest and the most immediate impact.
I would say the same thing that Cub said, but in a different manner where it has to be spread out to schools. Because don't get me wrong, I mean, the number of school shootings is small, but it's major with the number of bodies that it takes out. So my thing would be having that laws giving hope to individuals in those schools. Like when we went to school, yes, I'm dating myself. All we had to worry about was somebody picking up a bat and having a fight with it, not go in the lunchroom and having somebody be like, you know what, I don't like you because you didn't talk to me when I talked to you. I mean, you're changing the whole dynamic of the school systems. And my thought is, how do I protect these kids? Even though the school shootings are small, to me, they're major. So if we can have those laws and have it apply to a school level or something like that, giving them that freedom, you got to call somebody if you think something's up so somebody can go to that person's house, check in and alarm the parents or something like that. That's what I would agree with.
And for me, and it's going to sound a little Pollyanna, but I would say, this thing about gun laws and a lot of things that are happening in our society, it's not a zero sum game. Like if I give a little, then you're taking away from me. Like you said, can we take a step toward each other, not out of fear that you're going to be losing something, but it's not a zero sum game. I think if we can cogitate, reflect on what do you want the society to look at rather than what I'm giving up and what their person's taking and who's winning and who's losing. Because, going back to my earlier statement, there's some very capricious people out there. The behaviors change quickly based on the mental things that happen to them. And so I would rather see those things just take a step back. What am I giving up for the greater good of society? No one's taking your guns. There's over 400 million guns. It ain't going nowhere. But we do have to take a step towards each other and it's not a zero sum game. And that's my Pollyanna view. But again, we would love to hear from you. We're trying to bring something a little that's more relevant. And I would love to hear from you in your comments. Like and subscribe. We're always here to challenge or rebut anything. And like we said, we welcome anybody on our show who wants to challenge the view. Final words, gentlemen.
Stay safe.
Stay safe. All right. Remember, Brothers Crossing, look left, look right. You'll see Nando and Cub. Good night.